Some men get the call that ends everything with a ring. I got a week of nothing. Just a front door that stayed locked, and a daughter who decided, somewhere between her wedding and her first anniversary, that I wasn't worth a text back. You want to know what it feels like to raise someone for 31 years and then watch her treat you like a bill she's decided not to pay? Let me tell you. It feels like standing in your own driveway at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night, staring at your phone under a security light, wondering if the woman you taught to ride a bike in this same driveway even remembers your phone number anymore. My name is Richard Calloway. I spent 34 years running Calloway Mechanical, a mid-size HVAC and industrial refrigeration company out of Knoxville, Tennessee. Not glamorous work, not the kind of thing that gets you on magazine covers, but the kind of work that keeps hospital operating rooms at the right temperature and grocery warehouses from losing $1 million of product on a hot August night. I built it from a van and a toolbox and a reputation that took 15 years to earn and could have been ruined in a single bad week. I built it so my daughter would never have to worry. So she'd never have to do what I did at 22, working double shifts at a factory while taking night classes just to get one rung higher on a ladder nobody was holding steady for me. Her mother, my wife Donna, she passed 11 years ago. Ovarian cancer. Slow and then very fast, the way that disease tends to work. We had 3 good years of fighting and 1 brutal year of losing, and when it was done, it was just me and Melissa in a 4-bedroom house in West Knoxville, with too many rooms and a kitchen that still smelled like Donna's cornbread every time I walked in on a Sunday morning. Melissa was 19 when her mother died. I want you to hold on to that number, 19. Because everything I did after that, every tuition payment, every car, every safety net I stretched under her feet, I did it knowing she'd already lost the one person every girl needs most. I was trying to be enough for 2 people. I know now that's not how it works. But grief makes you try impossible things. I paid for her undergraduate degree at the University of Tennessee. I paid for her master's program in Charlotte. I co-signed her first apartment lease when she was 24, then her second one 2 years later when she moved to Charleston for a job at a marketing firm. I helped her buy her first car, a used Civic. Nothing flashy, and when that died on I-26 on a Friday night, I drove 3 hours in the rain to bring her a rental, and stayed until the tow truck came. I didn't do any of that because I wanted something back. I did it because she was mine. Because Donna was gone and Melissa was all I had left of the family we'd built together, and because some nights I could still hear my wife's voice telling me, in that last year, just take care of our girl, Richard, just take care of her. So I did. For 31 years, I took care of her, and then she married Marcus Webb. Now, I want to be fair here, because fair is the only thing I know how to be, even when it's hard. Marcus is not a bad man. He works in commercial real estate. He makes good money. He treats Melissa well, as far as I can see. His family, though the Webbs out of Columbia, South Carolina, they are the kind of people who define themselves entirely by what things cost. The kind of people who talk about square footage the way other people talk about good health. When Melissa started spending more time with them after the wedding, I noticed the shift, small things at first. She stopped asking about the business. She started correcting the way I said certain things at dinner. She used the word refined once to describe their neighborhood in a way that made it clear she didn't think mine qualified. I told myself it was an adjustment. Newlyweds find their footing. She was building a life with someone, and that meant the shape of things between us would change a little. I was ready for that. I expected that. What I was not ready for was what happened the 3rd week of March. Marcus's mother, Beverly Webb, was throwing a dinner party. A proper one, apparently catered, formal, the kind of event where you're told what to wear in the invitation. I wasn't invited. I found this out not from Melissa, but from a woman I'd known for 20 years, Carol Benson, who runs the bookkeeping for 2 businesses on the same street as Beverly's house, and happened to mention she'd seen the invitations go out. She assumed I'd received one. I had not. I called Melissa that Sunday afternoon, easy and casual, figuring there was a simple explanation. Maybe it was Beverly's guest list and Melissa hadn't had a say. Maybe the invitation got lost. Voicemail. I left a light message, nothing heavy, just hey, give me a call when you get a minute, just wanted to catch up. Monday passed. Nothing. Tuesday I called again. Voicemail again. I texted her Wednesday morning, Melissa. Everything okay? Haven't heard back. Read receipt. No reply. By Thursday, I want you to understand what was going on inside me. This wasn't just about a dinner party. I had a daughter who wasn't answering me. I'm 63 years old, and I have buried my father, my mother, and my wife. I know what absence feels like when it's permanent. My body doesn't distinguish anymore between silence that's temporary and silence that means something is wrong. By Thursday night, I was calling the hospitals. Not because I was being irrational. Because when you've already lost the people you love most in this world, your nervous system stops giving you the benefit of the doubt. Friday morning, she finally responded. Not a call, a text. 6 words. Dad, we just needed some space. Space. From me. I read it 4 times standing in my kitchen in the same spot where I used to make Melissa's school lunches, and I want to tell you that I handled it with grace, but the truth is I had to sit down. Because 6 words, after 7 days of silence, after 31 years of showing up for that girl in every way I knew how, 6 words felt like being handed a bill for a debt I had no memory of running up. I called back immediately. She picked up. And what happened in the next 4 minutes is something I have turned over in my mind almost every day since. Her voice was careful, practiced, almost, like she'd been rehearsing it. She said that Marcus and she had been talking, and they both felt that I had a tendency to be too present, that I called too often, that I made her feel obligated, that his family had helped her understand what healthy boundaries looked like, and that she needed me to respect those boundaries going forward. She said his mother had specifically not invited me to the dinner because they all agreed I had a way of making things about myself. I sat with that. I genuinely sat with it because I am not a man who dismisses criticism without giving it a fair hearing. I asked her calmly, I want you to know, because I didn't yell. I never yell. I asked her to give me one example of a time I had made something about myself. There was a pause. Then she said that the fact I was asking for examples right now was exactly the kind of thing she was talking about. I told her I loved her. I told her I would give her whatever space she needed. And then I said one more thing before I got off the phone. I said, Melissa, I just want to make sure I understand. Are you telling me not to call you? And she said, Dad, yes. Please, stop calling us for a while. We'll reach out when we're ready. I said, okay. And I meant it. Not the way someone means it when they're planning to ignore it in 2 days. The way someone means it when something quiet and permanent has just shifted inside them. I hung up, and I sat in my kitchen for a long time. Long enough for the morning light to move all the way across the table. I thought about Donna. I thought about what she would say right now if she were sitting across from me with her coffee and her reading glasses and that particular look she had when she was about to tell me something I needed to hear. I think she would have said, Richard, sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is show them exactly what the world looks like without you in it. And then she probably would have told me to go fix something, because that's always been how I think clearest. So I went to my office, and I started making calls. The first call was to my attorney, Frank DeLuca. Frank has handled my business contracts for 18 years. He is a methodical, unhurried man who does not make dramatic statements, which is exactly why I trust him. I told him what happened. I told him I needed him to look at every document, every signature, every financial thread that connected my name to Melissa's life. He said he'd have a full picture for me by end of week. The picture, when it came, was detailed. I was co-signed on her current car loan, a Volvo she'd upgraded to after the Civic, significantly more expensive, a purchase I'd supported because I wanted her to be safe on the highway. I had a standing automatic transfer set up, $2,000 a month, which I'd started during her master's program, and simply never stopped because she'd never mentioned she no longer needed it. I was still listed as a co-signer on a credit account she'd opened in Charlotte and never fully transitioned to her own name. And I had verbally committed, though nothing was in writing, to covering half the down payment on a house she and Marcus were planning to purchase in the spring. Frank laid all of it out on the table and looked at me over his glasses and said, What do you want to do? I said, Honor her request. Completely. The monthly transfer was the first thing, $2,000, gone, effective that Friday. Then I called the bank about the car loan. I notified them in writing that I was formally removing myself as cosigner and that any future delinquency would be entirely the borrower's responsibility. The bank flagged the account immediately, as they're required to do, and reached out to Melissa to inform her that the cosigner had withdrawn and the loan terms would need to be renegotiated based solely on her credit profile. I didn't warn her. She had asked for space. I was giving her space from every comfortable thing my name had been quietly holding up. The verbal commitment on the house down payment I memorialized in a letter I wrote myself, reviewed with Frank, and sent to her by certified mail. It stated clearly that due to a mutual agreement to maintain distance, I was rescinding any previously discussed financial support for real estate purchases, effective immediately. I kept the language plain and I kept the tone neutral. I was not punishing her. I was simply taking her at her word. Then, I did something I had never done in 31 years of being her father. I stopped reaching out, completely. No texts on Sunday afternoons. No voicemails on her birthday eve the way I'd left every year since she went to college. A 2-minute message I spent an hour composing because I always wanted it to be exactly right. No calls on the anniversary of Donna's passing, which Melissa and I had marked together every year since her mother died. Nothing. She had asked me to stop calling, so I stopped. And I started, for what felt like the first time in a long time, paying attention to my own life. I joined a Thursday evening woodworking class at a community shop downtown, something I'd wanted to do for years and kept postponing because there was always something more pressing. I started having dinner on Friday nights with my oldest friend, a man named Dale Ferris, who I'd known since we were both broke 22-year-olds sweating through the same trade certification program. I started sleeping better than I had in years. And I noticed, with a quietness that surprised me, that the anxiety I'd been carrying the constant background hum of "is she okay? Does she need anything? Am I doing enough?" was simply gone. Because you can't worry about someone you've officially been told to leave alone. 6 weeks passed, then 7. On a Wednesday morning in early May, my phone rang, and it was a number I recognized as Marcus's. I let it ring twice before I answered. His voice was controlled, but only barely. He wanted to know why Melissa's bank had contacted them about a cosigner withdrawal. He wanted to know why she'd received a certified letter about the house. He used the word blindsided 3 times in the first minute. I let him finish. Then I said the same thing I'd said to Melissa, in the same quiet tone. She asked me to stop calling. She asked for space. I'm honoring her request. He said that was not what she meant. I said I understood that's what he believed, but those were the exact words she had used, and I had taken them seriously. He said I was being vindictive. I said I was being precise. Then I told him to have a good morning, and I ended the call. Melissa called 20 minutes later. This time, she didn't let it go to voicemail. She was crying before she got through my name. Real crying, not the composed, careful voice from our last call. The kind of crying that doesn't have a script behind it. "Dad, why are you doing this? We didn't mean for you to just disappear. The bank called about the car. The house fell through because the down payment gap is too large without." I let her get it all out. I did not interrupt her. And when she was done, I said, "Melissa, you told me to stop calling. You told me you needed space and that you'd reach out when you were ready. I respected that. I also respected it in every other area of my life where my name was attached to yours. You asked to be on your own. I made sure you were." There was a silence on the line that lasted long enough for me to hear her breathing change. "That's not the same thing," she said. "It's exactly the same thing," I said. "The calls and the money come from the same place. They always have. You can't ask me to disappear from one and expect me to stay in the other." She asked if she could come see me. I said yes, and I meant that too. She drove up from Charleston on a Saturday. Alone, Marcus stayed home, which I thought was either wise or strategic, and I still don't know which. She looked tired in the way people look when they've been arguing for weeks about something they can't quite name. She sat down at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd read her 6-word text, and she said something I had not expected. "His family told me you were controlling, that the money was a leash, that I'd never really be my own person until I cut the cord. I let that sit. And do you believe that? I asked her. She looked at her hands for a while. Then she said, I don't know what I believe. I know that I was ashamed sometimes of the help, like it meant I hadn't really done it on my own. That was the truest thing she'd said to me in a long time, and it landed differently than the rest of it because I recognized it. I remembered being 22 with nothing, and how badly I wanted to earn everything myself, and how that wanting had a sharp edge that could cut the people trying to help you if you weren't careful. I understood her more in that moment than I had in months. I also understood something else. That Beverly Webb had sat across from my daughter at some catered dinner table and planted a seed that served Beverly Webb's purposes a great deal more than it served Melissa's. That pulling me out of the picture the father-in-law who didn't come from money and didn't move in the right circles was useful to a certain kind of family in a certain kind of social world. And Melissa, still missing her mother, still looking for a family to belong to, had been very easy to plant something in. I didn't say any of that to her. Some things a daughter has to arrive at on her own. What I did say was this. I told her about the woodworking class. I told her about Friday dinners with Dale. I told her I had spent the last 7 weeks not waiting by the phone, and that it had, genuinely, been some of the most peaceful weeks I'd had in years. I told her I loved her without conditions, and that would never change. And then I told her the part that made her go very still. I told her I had been to see Frank. Not about the car or the credit account. About my estate. About the trust I'd spent 20 years building and the plan I'd always assumed was obvious that Calloway Mechanical and everything attached to it would pass to her when I was gone. I told her I'd changed it, not out of spite. Not as a threat. I want to be clear about that, because the distinction matters to me more than almost anything else. I changed it because the version of myself that drew up that original plan was a man who believed his daughter saw him the way he saw her. And the last 2 months had made it clear that either she didn't, or she'd been convinced not to. Either way, leaving everything to someone who'd been taught to see my presence as a leash didn't seem like a kindness to either of us. The company, when I'm gone, will be offered first to my operations manager, a man named Carl Pruitt, who has worked alongside me for 16 years and knows every system in that building better than I do. If Carl doesn't want it, it goes to an employee trust. The financial assets will fund two things. A scholarship at the community college where I took my own night classes 40 years ago, designated for students in the skilled trades who are the first in their families to pursue certification. And a fund I set up through a local organization that supports widows raising children alone because I know what Donna did in that first year before I got the business stable, and I know it nearly broke her, and I know there are women doing that exact same thing right now in this city without anyone writing a check for them. Melissa sat with that for a long time. She cried some more. She said I was punishing her. I told her, quietly and with complete honesty, that I wasn't. I told her that if she wanted to rebuild something between us, I was here and I was willing and I would show up for her the same way I always had, but that my showing up was no longer going to be connected to a financial safety net she'd been taught to be embarrassed by. If she wanted her father, she could have her father. But the version of me that funds a life she uses to keep me at arm's length, that version had retired. She left that afternoon without us resolving everything. I didn't expect us to. Real things take time, and I am 63 years old, and I have learned to be patient with real things. What I will tell you is what happened on a Sunday evening about 3 weeks later. I was in my workshop. I'd set one up in the garage after the class downtown, the way I'd always meant to, sanding down the sides of a small cedar box I was building for no particular reason, except that I wanted to. My phone buzzed on the workbench. A text from Melissa. I talked to a therapist this week. She helped me see some things. I'm sorry, Dad. I want to start over if you'll let me. I set down the sandpaper. I looked at that message for a while. Then I typed back. I'm here. I've always been here. Come for dinner whenever you're ready. I put the phone down and picked up the sandpaper again. The cedar smelled clean and good, and the work was simple and honest. And outside the garage window, the Tennessee evening was doing that slow gold thing it does in May when the light comes through the tree line at exactly the right angle, and everything looks like something worth keeping. I thought about Donna. I think about her most evenings, one way or another. I thought about what she said to me in those last weeks. when she was tired and clear-eyed the way people get when they've let go of everything that isn't essential. She said, "Richard, you can't love someone into gratitude. You can only love them and let what happens happen." I didn't fully understand it then. I do now. I gave my daughter everything I had. I gave her a safety net so wide she never had to look down. And somewhere in all that giving, she stopped being able to see it, or she was convinced not to. That's not entirely her fault, and it's not entirely mine, and it is, mostly, just the complicated truth of what happens when you try to love someone across the place where grief used to be. She called her dad on a Thursday now. Not every week, but often enough. Marcus comes to Knoxville with her sometimes. He is polite to me in the way people are polite when they're trying to earn something back, and I am polite to him in the way people are polite when they're willing to see what someone does over time. Beverly Webb has not come up again. I expect she won't. The trust stays the way it is. I haven't told Melissa that, and I'm not sure I will anytime soon. Not because I'm holding it over her, but because I've learned something in the last year that I wish I'd understood 30 years ago. Money is not love. It can be an expression of love, in the right hands at the right time, but it is not a substitute for it, and it is not an obligation. The scholarships will go to kids sitting in night classes right now with tired eyes and secondhand textbooks who don't have anyone writing a check for them, and that feels exactly right. The cedar box is finished. It's sitting on my workbench holding a few things: a photograph of Donna, a folded note Melissa wrote me when she was 7, a small piece of the original steel cable from the very first commercial unit I installed alone 36 years ago, when the whole company was just me and a van and a stubborn belief that I could build something that mattered. I pick it up sometimes. I think about what it cost to build it. I think about what it cost to almost give it away to people who'd been convinced it was just something they were owed. And then I set it back down and go inside and make dinner, and watch the evening come in through the kitchen window in a house that is quiet in the right way now. Peaceful. Mine. If you're a father sitting somewhere tonight, wondering if you've given too much to people who've forgotten to be grateful, I see you. I was you. The answer isn't to give less. The answer is to give with your eyes open. And to remember that the most important thing you will ever build is the one that knows its own worth. That's all I've got for tonight, friends. If this story meant something to you, hit that like button and leave a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. I read every one, and I'll see you on the next one. Loving someone well doesn't mean loving them without limits. Richard didn't stop being a father the day he stopped writing checks. He became a clearer one. When you untangle generosity from guilt, what's left is something purer, a love that asks nothing back and loses nothing by standing firm. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone you cherish is let them feel, just once, the full weight of what your presence was quietly carrying. A small note for you: this story was created and fictionalized by AI, shared with the hope of bringing you a meaningful moment of entertainment while leaving behind a little something worth carrying into your own life.